Waheguru, 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 Waheguru.
Anji, so Harman Singh, first of all, I wanted to start off with a vadaiyan. So basically, congratulations. ਹੁਣ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੁੱਛੋਗੇ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ ਕਾਹਦੀ ਦੇਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਾਹਦੀਆਂ ਦੇਈ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ
ਦੱਸੋ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਕਾਹਦੀਆਂ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ I would like to know as well.
Yeah, so it's been 10 years this March in 2022 of Basics of Sikhi YouTube channel. 10 ਸਾਲ ਹੋ ਗਏ ਹੁਣ ਆਪਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਚੱਲਦਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ So ਹੁਣ can you think of a way of celebrating this 10 years, Harman Singh?
Guru de Sikh Guru de naal manaunde a. We'll celebrate by Kirtan, we'll celebrate with Katha, we'll celebrate with more prachar, more seva, Guru Saheb Jee Seesan, Sangat da Piar. What else could we do?
Amazing. That we'll be doing, as well as doing all of that, doing Kirtan and doing all of those things that you mentioned. Another thing that we're going to be doing is making this video. So to celebrate this 10 years of Basics of Sikhi channel, we've now come together to have this conversation and show the Sangat some of the clips going right from the very beginning, from the first video that was made. We'll be going and looking at that, and we'll be showing Sangat clips throughout this video of how this channel has developed over the 10 years. So ਆਪਾਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਦੇ ਲੈ ਆਪਾਂ ਗੱਲ ਕਰੀਏ let's talk about how did the channel actually come about. So Harman Singh, first of all, I'm just excited that I'm getting to talk to you like this anyway, you sitting wherever you're sitting in the US and I'm sitting here in good old England in Birmingham. So just continuing this conversation, do you remember what it was that Jagrat Singh used to actually do prior to setting up this channel? ਉਹ ਕਿਹੋ ਜਿਹਾ ਕੰਮ ਕਰਦੇ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਯਾਦ ਹੋਵੇ?
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਭਾਈ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ they had a master's degree from Oxford University in economics, politics and philosophy, and then they continued on to setting up a recruitment business which was actually very successful.
And you know what, that recruitment business being successful, we always had this going joke even when we used to have our management meetings for Everything's 13, and that going joke used to be that he might have come away from that business, but recruitment definitely hasn't left his bones, because he loved to recruit Sangat and members and bring them into the organization.
Definitely.
एक गल सी Bhai Jagrat Singh di that never actually stopped. So he I think in some way he remained in recruitment, didn't he?
Hanji. Not only did he remain in recruitment, but the politics was for the Panth, the philosophy was for Gurbani Vichar, and the economics was for the Maya and the Daswant.
Yeah.
So that fit in perfectly as well.
And you know what? One thing that I found so unique, sometimes we just listen back now to myself and Preacher and Singh, just listen back to Jagrat Singh telling his own story when I was with him in India, and it's almost like it was hearing it for the first time, and it was so new. And I tell you what blew my mind away, we've got some notes and a list written down here, was that when he set up this business with his business partner, one thing they both, and Jagrat Singh initiated this conversation, and they both agreed on that when they open this business, alongside it they're going to open and register a charity. And when they register that charity, so they're going to take out the savand, thus meaning that 10% out of the profits from the business that is going to go into this charity account. And they hadn't yet quite decided what they were going to do with that charity, but they decided to call it Sab Kich Tera, and which we all know then became the famous Everything's 13, from Guru Saheb Jee's Pangti, Main Nahi Prabh Sab Kich Tera.
Sab Kich Tera.
So really, I was quite mind blown, hana ke kiho ji soch sigi una di, the thought that they had, that who opens a business and alongside decides to then, but sare kende apa daswand kaad lunge, we'll take out some daswand, but to actually actively register a charity, है ना, कोई, for me, I don't know, ਤੁਸੀਂ ਦੱਸੋ, like ਮੈਨੂੰ ਤਾਂ ਬਹੁਤ ਵੱਡੀ ਗੱਲ ਲੱਗੀ.
Anji, bilkul. Sometimes we take the concept of daswand and ਆਪਾਂ ਸੁਣਦੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਤੇ ਵਿਚਾਰਦੇ ਵੀ ਆ ਪਰ ਅਮਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਕਰਦੇ. ਤੇ ਭਾਈ ਜਗਰਾਜ ਸਿੰਘ ਜੀ, he was also part of the army. He was an officer in the army, and myself knowing many people in the army as well, ਉਹ ਲਕੀਰ ਦੇ ਫਕੀਰ ਹੁੰਦੇ ਆ. And as a Sikh, Jagraj Singh was ਕਿ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਗੱਲ ਕਹੀ ਆ ਬਸ ਕਰ ਦੇਣੀ ਆ. You set a goal, you set a mission, you do whatever it takes to achieve it. And sometimes the rest of us, we might find ourselves knowing concepts about maybe Amrit Vela, Nitnem, the Swan, the simple things that we know, or maybe a righteous living. But then we make excuses that, oh, Guru Saheb will understand this much, or Guru Saheb will understand this one. But Bhai Jagraj Singh, he was a Fauji. And when he was doing seva for the Panth, he remained as a Fauji. So if he meant 10% out of his business, that was the minimum he would do. And to set up at a scale of a charity to do so much for the Panth, that's the fall. We're receiving the fruit of that today.
And that's why a lot of people, I think, do ask that question when they say we want to do this, we want to do that for humanity or for the Panth. But it's so, I think it's so important and interesting for us to look at the sochini, the thought process behind where this channel was all initiated from, which is amazing. So like I said, we've got written here these notes, and it says that within a short period of time, this business became very, very successful. And due to the business growing rapidly and becoming so successful, that it freed up some time for them. And whilst it freed up some time, Jagraj Singh says that he started to watch some YouTube videos. And from that YouTube videos that he started to watch, he was watching some Muslims doing some form of prachar and talking. And within that, what he found was that somebody asked them a question, that when we, all of the males get together, all the men come together and pray together in the mosque, and then somebody asked a question to the Muslims that then, what are we going to do about the women? How are we going to get our message out to them? You know, we all get to come here and congregate together. And somebody said to them, well, through YouTube. And at that point, Jagraj Singh thought, what's he on about YouTube? And there wasn't really anything.
And at that time, on YouTube, it was only comedians. I remember when if anybody would talk about YouTube at that time, we're talking about comedians like Jesspreet or this. And I remember when Jagraj Singh even mentioned YouTube to myself, we were all thinking, what, you're going to make comedy videos? He's like, no, we're going to be teaching about Sikhi. And that's exactly what you're referring to, about getting a dharmic message out to people who won't be able to receive it.
And I think the other amazing thing is how Vijay was open to learning from whatever angle and whatever means, and doesn't matter where that learning came from, to bring it back into Sikhi, bring it back into the Panth, and look at what we can do and how we can structure things. And I think that's amazing, to be that open-minded, to be able to learn from other people too. And I think it was amazing what actually was started. And so then from that, and he actually then typed into YouTube, what is a Sikh? And to his surprise, he found that it was a Muslim, Dr. Zakir Naik, that was answering this question, that who is a Sikh? And I think that really that struck something inside of him, to think that and he uses the word Guni Gyani. There's so many Sikhs that have got so much wisdom, and typing it into such a big platform, we're finding a Muslim answering this question for us. And then he goes on to say that there was a video of a Sikh girl who almost converted to Islam because she had some questions that she wanted answering. And when she went to a Gurdwara, went to a Granthi, the doors were shut upon her. So this continued to pain him but from that pain something beautiful was born. And there was, what you just mentioned earlier as well, before, there was a Christian that was asking that he wants these questions about Sikhi answered by somebody that is actually a Sikh.
Yeah, so he made a video on YouTube asking for a video response to an answer about a Sikh dastar, and he couldn't find any video answers on there. He wanted a Tyar Par Tyar Gursikh that actually wore a dastar, had a beard, and answered the questions about Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Panth. But what did our Panth at the time do? Unfortunately, we started arguing in the comments of that person's video. And about 6 months
I actually
later...
didn't know this detail.
Yeah, so after about 6 months...
How did you come to know this detail? That's interesting.
By Jagrar Singh, he told me himself.
Oh, wow. Because I just heard him talk about it whilst we did a talk together in India. But like now, see, was that in Canada when you met, or was it another time?
Just when he started. This is basically when he started the video. He was telling Gurinder Singh and I, he was telling us. So that video, the Panth started just arguing in the comments about it, and kisne kuch pak kehta, kisne kuch pak keh deta. And he actually made that video in a very respectful way, asking a genuine question, which of course, as the platforms were growing, and I think what happens within our community is we pull each other's legs sometimes, unfortunately, more than pushing each other to be able to get the message out to the world as much as possible. So nobody actually responded with a video to answer his question. About 6 months later, he read all the comments and he made a second video. And in the second video, he's like, I heard so much great things about the Sikhs. I just asked a genuine question and you guys couldn't come organize yourself to get back to me with one simple video answer response. So Jagraj Singh saw that video as well, and he thought to himself, man, that's embarrassing. So just like any Gursikh should, je hor koi nahi chakda zimmewari, he picked up the responsibility himself. He thought, I don't know how to answer this question. So he just went on YouTube, internet, Google searching, finding answers, figuring out as much as he knew, asking Gursikhs around him, and he wrote it down on a piece of paper. Then he set up his webcam. And nowadays we think, YouTube is 4K cameras, big, shots, all of these things, and the platforms have grown. But during that time, it was all about just getting the answer out. Sometimes we think, how am I capable of teaching this? But if you don't, then nobody else will. And that was the Fauji mentality of Jagraj Singh. Jagraj Singh was an army man. He was a soldier. He was a warrior. So in this sort of way, with that same warrior mentality, soldier mentality, he put the webcam on, decided it just needs to be done. And so he literally read off a piece of paper while having the camera in front of him. And he answered the question. And when he put it on YouTube, it basically went viral. And people started looking at that video and they asked more questions. So Jagraj Singh, in those comments, he saw more questions come out. And then he decided to answer more of those questions. And eventually, he started answering questions not only to non-Sikhs, but then Sikhs started asking him questions. That we don't know what should we do with our Ganga. We don't know why do we wear the dastar. We don't know why do we have to do our nitnem. So he started answering these questions one by one by one. And that came into the form of the YouTube channel name, where he thought to himself through his humility, well, if we were to say it's just his humility, he was a person that understood Gurbani and Gursikhi, even at that point, to quite depth, to be able to answer all those questions and to be able to provide them that nourishment and that peace of mind, onadi dubda, and removing the doubts of the people asking the questions. So he had that ability even then, but out of his humility, he thought, I can't compare to the great scholars of the Panth. There's no way I can teach about the intricacies, and there are so many people that are much more Vidwan, scholarly than I am. So he, out of his humility, he said, I can only teach the fundamentals, and that's what I'm aiming for. And he named his channel called Basics of Sikhi. And what he told me was that just like when somebody wants to be introduced to something, you search basics of cooking. You search basics of automotive. So if you want to learn how to, change your car's oil or something, you learn basics of photography. So he thought, we need to have a channel on YouTube from the Panth, by the Panth, called Basics of Sikhi, for those that have no other outlet, but they want just the fundamentals and those simple questions answered. And then from there, from Basics of Sikhi, came Basics and Beyond. And that's why Jagrat Singh was not only limited to basics, but he had so many more in-depth vichar and katha and gurbani katha that sprouted from that seed of where just a simple warrior-like mentality sat on YouTube and decided, I just need to get on with it.
That's beautiful, the way you've just described it all. That's just so amazing to hear it in that way. And I think this discussion is so important to have because it's lighting me up from inside as well. And it's that sometimes that spark, it just needs kind of that kick again. So Harman Singh, I'm just going to go back a little bit and go back to that moment of Jagrat Singh then not knowing how to make videos, not knowing anything about cameras, not knowing anything about editing, media. So he searched how to make videos, where to position your camera, and what camera should I buy. So then he did all of that. He went and bought a camera. He went and did all of this. And remember, by this time, they've got all the Savanda built up. So they've got this built up in the actual business itself. So then now they're putting it back into the Panth and to serve back and give to the Panth. And then he's bought a camera, and at his actual office where the recruitment business was based, he then set up his camera and he just started recording, and it was very raw, and I call it very innocent. I know, like Marji talk about that pole pae mile raghuraya, like pole pan vich ek bacche wang. And that's one thing I always found in Jagrat Singh. A lot of people will see that this sher, this lion, but I saw this beautiful, childlike, innocent human being, and only somebody like that can have humility. And he was talking about how he said that we're just going to fill this gap, and there's much better people out there, but he actually says that he called himself Plan B. So obviously he said there's a plan A out there, somebody will come and do that, but I'm just going to do Plan B for now. And that was just so amazing. And how he then sat there and made that first video of what is a Sikh. And I'm sure we'll show I'll show a little clip of that video of what is a Sikh, so everybody can see back to the very first video that Jagrat Singh actually made and remind ourselves of where this amazing journey actually all started from.
As far as Gurbani and as far as Sikh history is concerned, was made Guru directly by God. So Tan Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Waheguru made him Guru Nanak. He was given this job. Guru Nanak Dev Ji didn't just decide one day to make a religion called Sikhi. He was on a divine mandate.
And I tell you what I'm just reading here, the one thing that really sticks out for me is that he said that he was reading a book at that time which said, take responsibility for what you want to change. And ਉਹਨੇ ਉਹ ਜ਼ਿੰਮੇਵਾਰੀ ਸੰਭਾਲੀ, he took that responsibility, and he saw his gatra, that he's a part of that panth that has been given those keys. ਤਾਂ ਜਾ ਤੂੰ ਮੇਰੇ ਵੱਲ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਆ ਮੋਹ ਚੰਦਾ ਸਭ ਕਿਛ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸੌਂਪਿਆ ਜਾ ਤੇਰਾ ਬੰਦਾ. That ਮੈਂ ਤੇਰਾ ਬੰਦਾ ਬਣਿਆ, became your slave, but when I became your slave, then you gave me everything. And Guru Saheb Ji literally gave him everything, gave him this gyan, this platform to do everything, Hana. So I think that's absolutely amazing. But I'll tell you a little humorous part that I want to share with you, and how Jagrat Singh talks about where he used to go to Park Avenue Gurdwara in Southall for the Simran in the mornings, 4 a.m. and he doesn't mention in the videos, but from personal conversations, he told me that he used to actually bike it there. ਕਹਿੰਦਾ ਨਾਲੇ ਤਾਂ exercise ਹੋ ਜਣੀ to keep fit, but look at that as well, that's in itself, that's tapasya, that's penance, and like, so he's riding early hours of the morning. Like, who would think about doing that when they've got a car? He would think about actually jumping on a bike at that time in the morning and going to the Gurdwara at 4 a.m. And he said baad ch simran to baad ਉਹ ਬੈਠੇ ਸੀਗੇ ਇੱਕ ਹੋਰ ਸਿੰਘ ਸੀਗਾ ਨਾਲ, there was another Singh, and he started to share with that Singh that, you know what do you think about if, you know, I was potentially to start making some videos on YouTube to tell people, other people and Sikhs about Sikhi? But ਇੰਨੇ ਸਮੇਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਉਹਨੇ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 3-4 ਬਣਾ ਹਟਿਆ ਸੀਗਾ. So he had already made 3-4 videos, but he didn't tell him that, and he's kind of testing the water. ਉਹ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਸੀ ਦੇਖਦੇ ਆ ਕੀ ਇੱਥੇ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕੀ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ. So he said the Singh turned around and says, like who's going to listen to you? Like, you know, that ain't going to work. YouTube. He said that's just really odd and strange. And I absolutely love this story. And he's like, because you've been there when you've probably done something like this, and you're telling someone something but pretending it hasn't happened yet, but it has, just to see how they would respond. and the Singh's like freaked out, you know, like we got Preacher in here as well, and you can see he can't stop, he wants to laugh as well, and because you think, yeah, I've been there, and these things like, oh, and Jigraj Singh main ta bana bhi laiya, you know, I've already made the videos, and he's put them out. And Vizi, you've already said the success that those videos actually had. I think there's just, we can't even comprehend it. And I know we're not talking so linear here in time, and you know, we went a bit back, but just as we're saying that, and I feel it's the right time to say, I was saying to Preacher and Singh earlier that we can, it's, you know, the effect that it's had, the asar, the channel, it's actually immeasurable. ਆਪਾਂ ਰੱਬ ਨੂੰ ਕਹਿੰਦੇ ਆ ਨਾ that ਰੱਬ ਬੇਅੰਤ ਹੈ, like it can't be, you know, ਹਰ ਬੇਅੰਤ and ਹਉਮਤ ਕਰ ਵਰਨੋ. I try and describe you, but your method, like I end up describing you limited, but you're be'ant, you're actually, you know, unlimited, and I feel like that about the channel, VG, and I'm not being biased and saying that, but and this channel literally has infiltrated into so many we cannot even imagine it. It's actually beyond even comprehension. You go to schools, if now it's a Sikh ethos school or a Sikh faith-based school or anything like that, you ask the teachers, like, where, okay, yes, they might have more resources now, but if you go back a few years, what was you watching? What would they say? We watched Basics of Sikhi. Oh, we had this question, what was you watching? We watched Basics of Sikhi. Oh, we're running a Gurmat school at our Gurdwara, and we did the stories about the Gurus. Oh, what was your resource? Basics of Sikhi. And I know some people think pump mari janda, like, but like it's satya. It's this isn't that empty pump. This is just the truth of what I've seen and what I've heard, and I'm sure so many people can actually relate to that,
Definitely. Guru Sahib we kende tot na aave vad do jai. This is basically a shabad da langar. And any effort you put, Guru Sahib multiplies it by 4 times, because it's not our ability, it's not our power. Any of the knowledge, we weren't born with it. Asi Guru Sahib to sikhi hai na. Same thing jadon aapa agge paune, and the channel is a means of that, to be able to get it out. Just like you mentioned schools and various things, if I was to add something, that I've received messages and emails from African countries, from countries that you don't even expect that Sikhs even exist there, such as South America, and they say that we've been taking your videos and turning them into classes to teach for the kids, and we base them all off of your 1-hour video, your 10-minute video. And is tarike de naal, even the form of Gurbani that Guru Sahib blessed into our mind, into our hearts, and then onto our tongue, through the cameras, onto the YouTube channels, into the ears and the eyes of the Sangat, then that power of Gurbani still continues. It doesn't end there. it keeps on going, it keeps on going. ਉਹਨੇ ਕਿਸੇ ਹੋਰ ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ ਦੇ ਮਨ ਵਿੱਚ ਚਲ ਜਾਣਾ. Then that ਗੁਰਸਿੱਖ might set up a different platform, a different save, and might turn into a langar save, and might turn into something else. And sometimes our eyes can't see this. We can only see channel subscribers and views and things like that. But Guru's da Shabad goes way beyond that our mind can comprehend. And with Guru Saheb's kripaa, like you mentioned, it's not only just the basics of Sikhi channel now, it's expanded into so many different projects. The charity has allowed so many different aspects, such as we have Sikh Press Association, we have Mighty Khalsa, we have Kiddy Sangat, we have Gurmat Class, we have SikhTranslations.com, and more projects. Even yourself doing more projects, myself doing more projects, by Sukhdeep Singh doing more projects. More pracharaks have been allowed to take that fruit from the seed that Bhai Jagraj Singh placed by taking his recruitment business and setting up that Sabkish Tera charity, and expanded into not only one tree with a little bit of fruit, but it's transformed into a forest with more and more fruit that's pollinating more and more and more, and it'll continue down to do that.
And you just said Sabkish Tera. In that moment, it just felt like, oh wow, he actually did it in a way that is sachi tera ya, like it mera nahi, it's yours, and it became everyone's. Like if you look at tera in that context of being not just the formless Waheguru, but Waheguru in the form of other human beings, the Khalsa Panth, and saying to the Khalsa Panth is tera ya sara, that sab kuch tera, this is all yours, it belongs to you, and I'm giving this to you. And that just felt right saying that in that moment.
Yeah, and it also reminds me of, I think, a motto that not only by Jagraj Singh, but also you and I think within our entire charity, it's a unwritten feeling, or the unwritten motto that we have, ki Panth vase main ujada. And as a sevadar for the Panth, as our organization, I know every employee that we have today, they all take pay cuts, they all take they go work excessively, they take burnouts, they do all of these things that a normal workplace or normal even seva endeavor might not be able to do, because that is our motto, ki Panth vaste karna hai. Everything that there is this, it's all coming from there, it's for the Panth vase main ujada.
And because we've started talking about this now, on my personal Instagram, I put up a question to say, how has the basics of Sikhi YouTube channel touched your lives? And I got so many responses. I'm just going to read out a few, and then they can share it on the screen as well. That one where it says that, and I know this person actually does work in a school, and I'm not going to say any names, and it says that unexplainable in words, reignite the thirst of Sikhi forever at all of your charan. And you know, there's so many. Another one, understand deeper meanings of Gurbani, transform the way I see myself and look inwards, learn about Sikhi more, made me connect to God and taught me the importance of human life. It's just, you know, there's so many. It's like, where do I start? Guruji's kripaa, boss. So BOS was the first channel that got me deep into Sikhi. This one's amazing, touched my heart. I just moved from India and Sangat, so she moved away from Sangat. It was hard to transition, but through BOS channel, I feel connected and happier. So I've probably got about 40 responses just here, screenshots, but that's just 3 that I've read out. And what I was thinking was, as you was talking, because you was mentioning projects within Everything's 13, but it's laid the foundation to give birth to many other organizations that we don't necessarily even know of clearly or are involved with, but the seeds have come from there. Now, let's introduce that Jagraj Singh always felt that there should be a course for Sikhi, and he announced to the Sangat. So by this time, just to let the Sangat know, as the channel started to grow, Jagraj Singh started to get busier and busier. He was doing this now at this moment. he was doing this pretty much full time, making the videos, and then he started to prepare and actually create a course. He said to the Sangat, we're going to run this course within 2 months' time, which is May. He didn't have all that course ready, which he didn't tell the Sangat. And that course was going to be 12 weeks and 12 parts to that course. And he had 2 months to start delivering it. But he thought that's the best way for me to do it is give myself that deadline and pressure to just get it started. And that course, which became the famous Waheguru course, which can be found on this channel, on Basics of Sikhi channel, which was a huge success for the Sangat that used to come to that, would come knowing almost nothing about Sikhi, and they grew their Sikhi so much. But from this point, as Jagrat Singh got busier, he says that they had the swan saved for about 1 year, but at the end of that 1 year, that the swan was then obviously running out. Things were now thinking that we're going to need to call it a day. Do I go back to work? But when he started getting busy in the beginning, he took a hukamnama, and that's one thing. He lived by hukamnamas. And so when he first started doing all of this work, stepped away from the business for a while, the partner continued, took a hukamnama, and the hukamnama was by Bhagat Kabir Ji. And Bhagat Kabir Ji says, Mus mus rove Kabir ki mai, saying that my mother is now crying. Why is she crying? Because Tanana bunana sab tajyo hai Kabir. Because Kabir Ji's now given up what he was doing before, his work, or Tanana bunana, weaving. And in that same way, Jagrat Singh had stepped away from the business and was giving everything to this. But at the end of the year, when now funds started to come to an end, and then he took another hukamnama, and Guroo Saaheb Jee, he can't recall of the actual Gurmukhi of the hukamnama, but he can remember the words saying that give your body, mind and wealth, give your everything and walk on this path. So Guroo Saaheb Jee uses tan man tan, so I'm sure those 3 words would have been in that hukamnama in some form. And then from that point he said to his wife that this is something I've got to this is the Guruji saying that this is something I've got to carry on doing. And she gave her full blessings in the beginning as well when he first started to do that. So from that hukamnama, then they did a beinti, request to the Sangat, that now I can either go back to work or I can continue doing this. And if I was to continue doing this, then I'm going to need this is how much I will need to just live to pay our way at home. And the Sangat fill their pot, fill their choli, and he was able to then continue to do this work. So Harman Singh, whilst the Jagrat Singh developed the course, which he used to deliver then on a Wednesday night, so it was an evening course on a weekday, but at the same time he had started doing katha on stage at a Gurdwara, which wasn't very common or usual. It was very unusual to have English katha off a Gurdwara stage back then. But he started with Mool Mantar. But what he had, pakka ek gal sigi he had said that whatever we're going to do, we're going to record it. So he was always recording whatever he was doing. He did the katha of a Mool Mantar, and then he thought, I'll just carry on. And the Gurdwara gave them a very odd time on a Sunday at 6 p.m. where nobody used to really come to the Gurdwara at that time. They thought, just get them off our back, give them that time. But Guru's kripaa, so much grace flowed in through the katha when they then asked, when he said, I'm just going to start telling stories after the Mool Mantar. Somebody requested him, and Gursikh said, no, Bhai Saaheb Jee, why don't you now continue and do all of Japji Sahib Katha? And he thought, whoa, Japji Sahib is just way out there. This is like Brahm Gyan Bani. This is me, I'm Maha Murak, I'm this great fool. How could I do such a and somebody said, look, why don't you listen to Sant Singh Maskeen, Gyani Sukhraj Singh from Seek to Inspire was doing currently at that time Japji Sahib Katha. So he would then, again, I'm going to come back to Virji Pole Pai, that innocence. He used to write notes on an A4 sheet of paper, and he used to wear jeans and then with a kurta top. And he used to sometimes, because he used to have sometimes an issue with his knees, so he used to just sit, not even cross-legged, and he would put the sheets of A4 paper on the vajja, and he had started doing katha of Japji Sahib from listening. But I'd like to say at this point, yes, he was listening to them and he was humble, but from my conversations with him, in his innocence, he would tell me that he did a lot of contemplating, a lot of meditating on Guru's Bani, to the point where there was arth, that translations would come forth to him, that he would later then find out. Somebody would say, yo, such and such Mahapurkha did this arth as well. And Gyani Gurbachan Singh did an arth like this to that word. And he didn't even know that, but he was meditating on it so deeply that he would start seeing it in that light. So even though in his humbleness, he only told the Sangat that I'm just listening to these guys and sharing it with you. But, from my conversations, I know he wasn't telling me direct, but he would tell me in his innocence. It was coming from there, plus his bhakti.
Hanji.
And that's why the impact.
He had this love with Gurbani, and he also shared with myself that for him, when he did Simran and when he connected to Gurbani, he would experience it as if it's his mother explaining the earth to him, just like a mother hugs the child, and the child doesn't know what to do, but the mother grabs the child by the finger and says, I'll walk you through it myself, and I'll tell you what to do, what to do. So he felt that embrace whenever he sat on a stage or spoke with the Sangat. He felt that Akal Purkh, Guru Sahib, the mother, is hugging him and embracing him and teaching, "Put koi nahi kar, main tere naal hai. Galti bhi ho ji, koi gal nahi. Even if you make a mistake, it's okay."
And that's why then Guru's grace, then the Japji Sahib started to be uploaded onto the channel, which was just, again, the impact was just immense and so humbling when we think of it, the effect that it had when he came from such a place of innocence. And so then, but right till the end, that continued, and that was happening then on a Sunday. So he would prepare for that, prepare and write up the Waheguru course, deliver the Waheguru course on a Monday, and then he'd record in between that time. He'd be recording some vlogs, which could be in the form of Q&As, which could be in the form of, I think he did some cool series when he came to Canada, to your banded Laka as well in Calgary. ਉੱਥੇ ਵੀ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਬੋਟ ਵਿੱਚ ਬਹਿ ਕੇ ਨੇ ਕੁਝ ਕੀਤਾ ਸੀਗਾ. So he was very, very out there in trying these new ways, and I think that's why people connected to him so real. I think, rocking up, some people might say like, koi changi gal hai, tusi, why are you promoting this? But I think, Viji, like, why did he have such an impact? Odi boli siddhi si. He didn't use fancy words. He spoke very just normal, straight. Rocking up in jeans in the beginning, baad kurte samale se gaye. Yes, he did get some, bane sewn afterwards, and he started to wear bana on stage because, people did start saying it. But I think that's what people loved about him. He tried new things, new ways, and he completed the Satabaniya in the end.
It takes me back to the Hukumnama Rosu Rove Mus Rove Kabir Ki Mai. That not everybody is going to be happy when you walk this path. It's very, very
that's
difficult.
So
and so he was innovative
I
in
remember,
this way.
You're so right. What I remember people that messaged me at that time saying, this new guy, he, like the katha he doesn't really know how to do katha. And and it's true. I never saw it in that way, that mus rove kabir ki mai. It's not just your family might be thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's other people as well that are thinking, oh my God, like, where are the gyanis? And how come this guy in a jean that can't even cross his legs properly is why are people connecting to him so much? And that's because he had naam, he had that connection and experience.
Hanji. It makes me think, if we look at Guru Nanak Dev Ji's Ityas, many people said the same thing to Guru Nanak Dev Ji, tu ki sikhaunga? You're just going to walk around as a fakir. Haan, unhone bhej dharan kita. Meaning, they went, walked around, they connected with the world in the way the world received dharma at that time. And at Bhai Jagraj Singh, I see he was able to break that gap between the Western youth that see Sikhi as a distant thing. Oh, the Gyanis and the Gurdwaras will do it. It's for the older people. That's not for us. My parents and my uncles can go on Sundays and they can listen to the guy in town. That's not for us. But he went to their level and said, let's have a conversation. Let me talk to you. Let me teach you how Sikhi is cool, how it's relevant to you. And he basically went. Anji.
And you know how you just said, VG, that Guru Nanak Dev Ji made it relevant for that time? And there was people that thought, oh, what's he going to teach us? But then they used analogies like Naam, Beej, Santok, Suhaga, Rakh, Garibi, Ves. And I look at that analogy and I have to learn about farming because I've never farmed myself. And, and I think, oh, what's a Suhaga? It's a plow. Again, something unique that Jagraj Singh introduced onto the channel was the series of analogies. So he used analogies like, he said, there's people that aren't going to be able to, not everyone's going to be able to connect with farming. There still are people that will, but most of us that are sitting in these Western countries won't be able to. So he used, what was his first analogy? The iPhone analogy. So we can show a little clip of that as well.
Guru Sahib in Gurbani does use a number of different analogies. For example, he talks about farming and how what you sow, so shall you reap. He also talks about the making of yogurt. Not many of us make yogurt nowadays, but people that do would understand that one. But I just wanted to use something a little bit modern, a little bit light-hearted, just to explain some of the science behind connecting. And this is purely come back from conversations that I've had with people. This is not from Gurbani, so obviously there's going to be some things that will be mistakes, and I apologize in advance for that. The key thing about a phone is its purpose is really that it can allow you to phone somebody. When we look at the antenna of a phone, we can compare that to something like the Dasam Dwar. And that hidden one is really what activates when you start meditating and connecting. So that's your antenna, effectively.
Not like the iPhone analogy. That was the first analogy video that was made. And tanu hor bhi shayad yaad hongiyan, you might remember others too.
He had the umbrella analogy, he had the Pizza Hut analogy, right? He had all of these different analogies. That would people would be like, wait, how can Sikhi connect to Marvel movies? How can it connect to Harry Potter? How can it connect to this? The Matrix movie, how can it connect to these things and the things that people are doing on a daily basis? And how can you see Sikhi through that? How can you connect to things that you are already doing and bring that back to your connection with Guru Sahib and bring Guru Sahib into your life? And when you think about it, when Bhai Gurdas Ji is explaining examples as well, Bhai Gurdas Ji is given the hukum by Guru Arjan Dev Ji Maharaj to go and answer the questions of the Pandits and those people that were doing Nindya of Guru Granth Sahib Ji. And they were saying Guru Granth Sahib Ji is speaking the false. Bhai Gurdas Ji used examples that they would be able to know and see, such as the duck, such as the river, such as, the things that they knew, and give them analogies based on that. So now do you understand what Guru Sahib is saying? So in that same sikhya to us, that if somebody cannot connect with maybe what they are being shown and they become so distant, then go to them and you just speak just like you speak to an 8-year-old kid. You give them the examples in the way they would want to understand. You might use the itsy bitsy spider, you might use the twinkle twinkle little stars, but really not just the 8 years old, the 28-year-olds, they're in the same boat. The 38-year-olds, they're in the same boat. They need the examples that are relevant to them. So that's why you can just say Bhai Jagraj Singh had that brilliant mind to be able to put that forward and connect and build that relationship that we're bros, we're buddies, we're together. I'm not only part of the Khalsa Panth, you are as well. This is your responsibility. That was the greatest thing. He, like a army general, they can't win the war themselves, but they have to lead the mission and give the responsibility to each individual soldier and say that this war or the victory is based on your shoulders, the mehnat that you do. We collectively do this together, and that's what Guru Sahib has given to us as the panth. So in the age of YouTube and the jokes, you can see Jagrat Singh pioneering that.
And that's why the channel started to become more and more relevant to people that would not have even thought about watching YouTube, Sikhi on YouTube. There's so many people that I heard during that time when I first joined as well, saying, I didn't get this from the Gurdwara from the last 20 years, or I didn't even, what I've learnt in 5 videos, I didn't get that out of 10 years of being and going to such and such place where you would be expected to learn. And that's why the channel itself, that's why we're celebrating this channel, because it started to touch people in a way, and those people that would never have considered opening their hearts to this path of Gursikhi before. But when they see something come up like the Matrix analogy, Sikhi and the Matrix analogy, they're like, oh wow, that was a deep film, and let's have a look at how this relates to Sikhi. And Jagarachana Sab Choot Hai, Jaan Le Ho Re Meet, and start to understand these deep truths and reality that the Guru has brought forward to us. Hai?
So, Bhai Saaheb Jee, can you explain a little bit about how you got involved and how the charity became from a one-man show into a team effort?
Yes, Vijay. So, I remember watching Jagrat Singh's videos, a few of his videos, and when I came across them, I was in awe of when I saw Jagrat Singh's street prachar videos. And street prachar is something that we haven't spoke about yet as well. So that's something, again, street prachar was one of the things on the channel. I think if it was just Jagrat Singh's Katha, I may not have even potentially watched it, because I watched Katha in Punjabi, and Gyani Pinderpal Singh, Sant Singh Maskeen, Gyani Gurbachan Singh was who I used to listen to. So, but Gyani Kulwant Singh Ji, but when it came to, because it was the street prachar, which was something so unique that he went and did. Again, he went on YouTube, saw what other certain faiths are doing and how they are going out onto the streets, but they're going with an intention of converting. But Jagrat Singh took that idea and he thought, wouldn't this be great? And Jagrat Singh had the intent of going out on the streets and having these amazing conversations with people about Sikhi, just to let them know it's something that exists and this is what it's about. And he used the 3 Facts leaflet to do that.
Yeah, we're not preaching, we're teaching.
Yes,
that's what he said.
Absolutely. Yeah, amazing. And from the back of that, I was in awe of him having the heart to go and do something like that. And I thought, never would have thought about something like this. And from the back of that, during that time, we used to do weekly vichar sessions at home. Used to go through Japji Sahib and do some kirtan. And then one of the days I decided to show all the Sangat one of Jagrat Singh's videos. And because the Sangat knew I was so passionate about Prachar and Sikhi, they said to me, well, we saw a video of his asking for more people to come on board. They said, why don't you contact him? But I was always a bit kind of, sometimes I'd be a little bit shy and stay in my shell a little bit, not do that. But so I didn't contact him. But Guru's way was such that once I was up 8 hours away from where we live in Birmingham doing Katha, it was live on Sikh channel, which Jagrat Singh happened to watch, which you can watch this on our channel, like the story is on there, and I've shared that, how Basics of Sikhi came about. There's a video, and from there Jagrat Singh actually ended up seeing that and contacted me, and he said, Singh, you've got to come on board. I was very reluctant, was worried about finance, work, everything else. But in the end, went to London. He called me to do Katha, sat next to him on stage. It was one of, you have moments in your life that are very touching. And I did the katha very passionately whilst Jagrat Singh was sat next to me, but it was a very, very special moment, and I'll tell you why. And it was because of his facial expression, which was, his face was glowing, he was in tears, he was lit up, and I hadn't experienced that from, I've sat during his katha, during his time. There was no sense of ego or fear. It was just an open heart, allowing somebody else to come and be a part of his journey. And I thought, wow, this is really something. And he announced that day on stage without it being fully confirmed with me. We obviously had the conversations, but I hadn't yet given in completely. But he announced that the Sangat Baljeet Singh will now be joining us full time. And I was just in awe of his confidence, but that confidence came from his faith and devotion with Guroo Saheb. And then there was Sangat that was so reluctant, thinking, oh my God, we can't have somebody new on the channel, he's going to spoil it, who is this kid? You know, not realizing, not a kid, I'm only a year younger than Jagrat Singh, you know, and a kid in the sense of the way I looked, you know, they thought I was young in that way. But Guru's kripaa, the Sangat was so embracing, and it was almost like this beautiful, beautiful relationship that had started. That was, you know, it's a conversation for another, for another podcast, because Vijay, then, you know, I always wanted to talk about the Guru's lives in a systematic way and with devotion, and we was able to then create that opportunity. And then we called that series originally 12 weeks 12 Gurus, the 11th week obviously covering Guru Granth Sahib Ji, the 12th covering Guru Khalsa Panth, now which is called the Travelling Light of Guru Nanak, which was such a huge success of a series on the channel, which has been used throughout the world by so many, and to grow their love and knowledge for Guru Sahib, and to use then to go and teach on to others. So it was just a relationship it's unexplainable. Tusi dasso apna, how did you come about onto let's go straight onto how did you get yourself on the channel? Let's ask it that way, then you can go backwards.
So I had met Bhai Jagrat Singh in the very, very early days when he only had a few videos on the YouTube channel. Mm-hmm. At that time, there's only 1 or 2 channels speaking about Sikhi on the internet in that format at that time, and Jagrat Singh was one of them. So one of the elder Singhs in our Sangat, he invited Bhai Jagrat Singh to our town. That's where I had met him. And at that time, there was a lot of inspiration within myself to do and teach Sikhi from the likes of Bhai Parminder Singh Ji, Bhai Pradeep Singh Ji from Guru Nanak Academy, where they had passed away many years earlier. And so we were on that path of trying to set up schools and Sikhi camps and train things. And at that point, I had reached a place in my life where I said, what is the point of doing anything else? It should be for the Panth. So that state of virag and meeting Jagrat Singh in that moment, to be able, where the rest of the world says, no, you have to follow this way in life, you have to do this. Jagrat Singh was that person that said, you can also do this, why don't you do this with us? They, at that time, very hesitant, but very young at the time as well, continued doing prachar, continued doing things, and he encouraged me at that time. While ending up continuing to do prachar and teaching physical aspects of a Gursikh's life, to team Khalsa training. For the Sangat that I would do, I'd run like a boot camp, I'd run physical training, training cycles, personal training for the Sangat, at the same time while trying to run Gurmat camps, and then other endeavors within the community through the youth of the city. But also getting involved with on the backside of things with certain members in the Gurdwaras Sahib, other organizations. For me, the aspect was what changed my life. What is the thing that flipped my life around? Was it somebody that taught me how to do a push-up? Was it somebody who taught me how to use a gun or a kripaa? Was it somebody who taught me how to do math and science? It wasn't. It was somebody that taught me the Guru's word. That changed my life. And I asked myself the question, Jagrat Singh encouraged me to do that, was, what is your why? What is that reason of what you would want to do anything? And for me, the thing that flipped my life around was Gurbani. So if someone taught me Gurbani and I wanted to pass that on to the world, and this is my seva for the Panth. And the thing that the Panth needed at that time was to connect with Guru Sahib as the community was growing, but Guru Sahib's message in the youth was going less and less and less. So the things that we figured out that we needed to do for the world, and I still remember Jagrat saying it into my ear, he said, there's 3 things that we need to do. Prachar, Prachar, Prachar. And so for me, that's what that sparked it. So I tried to find many different ways to be able to do prachar at the local Gurdwara in different areas as well. When I found myself in the UK many years later, and at that time I had met yourself as well. In that meantime, Abji had joined the organization, and the organization had grown not from Bhai Jagrat Singh but into a team of a few editors. It had grown into a team of designers. It had grown into many different projects as well. And when I came into the UK, I was blessed to have brothers like yourself and Bhai Jagrat Singh who saw that ability in me to be able to put me on a stage to say, go and say something. At that time, if you remember, I was doing kirtan with yourself. Abdi were doing katha, and I would do the kirtan. And I remember at this one camp somewhere in the south of England, we sat in a room, and that was the most memorable moment where Bhai Jagrat Singh sitting in front of you. You were doing katha, and I was doing kirtan. I think I spoke a few things there as well, but the room and that memory there with Bhai Jagrat Singh had tears down his eyes. Yeah, the Guru Sahib Shabad was Ab hum chali Thakur pe hai, ab hum sharan Prabhu ki aayi, raag Prabhu paave maar. Like Guru Sahib, kill me or keep me, I'm yours. And that moment, I remember,
and you're
you were in tears.
And you're happy for us to throw a clip of that into this podcast.
Of course. I remember yourself being in tears. I remember Bhai Jagrat Singh being in tears, and I remember myself being in tears in that moment. So at that moment, I felt I'm in the right environment. This is the way that I can do what I want to do for the Panth. So from there, I remember in a different time during that same tour, I was doing kirtan and you were doing katha, and Abji and Bhai Jagrat Singh told me that you're going to do katha on stage as well. And this was a few minutes before we sat on stage. And I was like, let me just do the kirtan. Main to bas shabad padh dunga, tusi katha kar rahe ho, you're the guys that are famous around here. ਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੇ ਕਿਹਾ ਕਿ ਨਹੀਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੀ ਬੋਲਣਾ ਆ। ਉੱਥੇ ਦਾਸ ਨੇ ਆਪਣੇ ਮਨ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਸਾਖੀ ਸੁਣਾਈ based off of the ਇਤਿਹਾਸ Guru Saaheb Jee had blessed into my mind at the moment, and that went on to the channel, and from that channel Sangat started asking, who's this guy? And when Bhai Jagrat Singh Ji came into Montreal and I met up with him in Montreal, we did Q&A sessions. We at New York camp, I remember, and at that time I'd already been on the channel and I'd been in various videos on the channel at that time, and involved in various projects and organizing teams within Canada at that time on an administrative level. But then when it became full-time was when I had drawn up ideas to be able to do things in Prachar in North America, to grow projects. And I wanted to get, you can say, expert advice on it. So I called up Bhai Jagrat Singh. I said, I want to do this project. These are the visions that I have. This is the way I want to lead the things I want to do. And I'm thinking of setting up an organization to do all of this. He said, why alag-alag hoke ka to karna, aapa ikkathe kar lene hain. We'll do it together. Why do the same thing that I've been focusing on for so many years? मैं क्या 7 बच्चन. So then we combined all of that and it gave birth to North America, everything's 13 teams, the basics of Sikhi teams. And that allowed us to not only branch out in North America, but also into Southeast Asia and Australia and India and other places after we had set up our academies after that and brought in more sevadars, more pracharaks. And we continue to do all of these projects today. But I just think back to those moments that say, why do you do what you do? And it's that same motto that we were speaking about earlier that Bhai Jagiraj Singh had inspired the entire team to do, and had selected us to say, go and do this. Go and do this for the Panth. This Panth was saying, it's not for us. We've set on a path for our entire life to say, Guru Sahib Ji, this life is your janam tumhare likhe thode likhe lekh ditta, Panth de likhe la ditta hai. And Maharaj di kirpa naal, Guru Sahib da pyar, Sangat da pyar, we continue to do that. We celebrate 10 years today of these sevas and these projects, and we hope to do it for many, many years to come.
All right, Harman Singh, you know what? Like, that was just amazing conversation. We were supposed to have like a literally 5 minutes chat, but it's just an amazing journey. I think just having this conversation. So I'm going to say,
and we could continue speaking for hours, and this conversation will not end. I'm sure there's so many different aspects that we missed out on.
So we're going to have to say a Fateh to you now, and just with Preet Singh, we're going to just finish off and tell the Sangat and more of what came to the channel and what's brought it now and then to the current time. So thank you, VG, so much for spending this time and having this conversation.
ਆਪ ਜੀ ਦਾ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਬਹੁਤ-ਬਹੁਤ. ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ.
Yeah, so Preet Singh, we obviously planned, and I think it went perfect. We planned for me and Harman Singh to have about a 10-minute conversation, and that was 12 minutes?
Yeah, 12 minutes going an hour.
Yeah. All right, so, okay, it lasted an hour. And I think it lasted an hour because it's just been such a journey for us. And obviously, myself and Harman Singh, we weren't quite there when Jagiraj Singh initiated the channel, but hearing back to how it was done and then being a part of the journey from pretty early on, which was probably just over a year later. And I think it was just amazing sharing those beautiful, beautiful memories. And we just couldn't stop at that 10 minutes. So
that's okay.
Something that's in the same playlist as the Street Prachar and the success that Street Prachar was, I would say a huge success and a hit amongst so many. And when I say a success, I'll explain what I mean by that. Just what came from that Street Prachar was the Speaker's Corner, where Bhai Jagiraj Singh went to Hyde Park and stood there, and where there'd be other people there talking about their faith, or somebody could be just talking about philosophy, or somebody that is even has no faith in God. Like, you've got all sorts of people there, and then there was Jagiraj Singh that rocked up. Some people would say, is this something we even do as Sikhs? But Jagiraj Singh, he took those risks and wasn't confined in that way, and he did these things. He didn't sit there overthink something. He was a visionary, so he just went there and did it. And he went to that Speaker's Corner and he spoke, and he just started telling people about Sikhi, this is Sikhi, this is Sikhi. And from that, you'd get other faith members that would come and then start debating him, trying to win over arguments, trying to try and prove that faith to be false. But Jagiraj Singh was so stern that, as like Guru Saaheb Jee say to us, that Degena dole dirad kar rahe, that never wavers and is so sure and so firm. And why was that a success? What do I mean by that was a success? I remember one time when me and Jagiraj Singh, we was at a Vaisakhi stall together in Birmingham, and somebody came up to Jagiraj Singh, and they came up to us collectively, and they said, you know what? They said, because of your videos on Speaker's Corner, we wouldn't have watched a traditional type gatha or talk, but because this was so out there and interesting, and it was as like a debate going on. I would say it was a debate from the opposition, the other people, but from Jagraj, from his perspective, he wasn't trying to debate, he was just saying it as it is. And they said, but when we watched that, it made us feel, wow, we know so little about our faith. And if somebody was to come and question us about our faith, we wouldn't have a leg to stand. We wouldn't know what to say in return. And they said because of those videos, and some people may have found them uncomfortable, some loved them, but because of them, they said that it made us want to know more. It made us want to know about our own rich faith that we belong to Sikhi. And because of that, then we watched Japji Sahib. Then we watched the Q&As from the back of that. And whenever me and Jagraj Singh would sit down, he would say, that's not what I'm into, going out on these speakers' corners and doing these things. He goes, the result of what we've just heard, he goes, exactly for that's why I've done it. And so it's a success. It's actually got people knowing more about their faith. And as you know, it's not just about knowing about your faith. These were then people that were coming up to us and they didn't practice Sikhi before, didn't have their gaze grown or anything like that, but now we're doing Simran, meditating on God's name in their own way, finding Sangat, which are the core, I would say, which is the core of Sikhi, Simran, meditation, and Sangat is. So it was a huge success on the channel, and let's carry on, let's move on. And because the channel, from where we left it, it didn't stop there. As we all know, it continues to grow. And one of the moments where we introduced, which was a moment of growth again, was the moment where we introduced Bhai Sukhdeep Singh. And Bhai Sukhdeep Singh came from the basics of Sikhi Academy, which is originally we just called it the Vadiyala. And Basics of Sikhi Academy was an amazing space where people could come in and experience that environment, to be able to grow and learn about Sikhi and to be able to do Prachar and Katha, which from that Bhai Sukhdeep Singh came out of that shining. When I see Sukhdeep Singh and I think, he's been able to reach out and do an amazing job of being able to relate to so many youth, especially even those that are teenagers and the more younger generation. Not to say that, other age groups don't listen to his prachar, because they do, but, he's definitely been able to touch those hearts and minds as well that are a lot younger than potentially what myself or even Jagraj Singh may have reached. And through his amazing ability to create these skits, something definitely that I wouldn't be able to do. So I think, amazing, to see that, and then to develop into doing Katha of Gurbani, and doing now Katha of Sri Sukhmani Sahib. And you might be watching these years down the line as well, and you can then go back to and use that resource and be able to grow your understanding of Sri Sukhmani Sahib. And then the following year, Vadiyala Basic Sikhi Academy then came shining through, was Bibi Gurpreet Kaur. And I would say it's just such an amazing growth to be able to witness and see that, and how much development of Gurbani and understanding the depth of Gurbani to be able to understand in that way, and then being able to share that on the channel, and again being able to relate to so many people, so much Sangat, especially then Bibiyan being that feeling empowered of seeing somebody like Bibi Gurpreet Kaur come forward, which has contributed the series of Barama, and so many more videos that are relatable for today's age. And another thing is that Basics of Sikhi channel actually gave birth and was able to be a parent to another channel, which is Boss TV. So again, a very, a new age way of being able to do Sikhi Prachar and being able to do podcasts and in a very informal way, and keeping up again with, as Guroo Saaheb Jee says, that Waqt vichare so banda hoye, that Maharaj says that, that's who you refer to as human beings, that look at the waqt, look at the time and vichar and contemplate what is needed for that time. Yes, that punkti's got a deeper meaning, and you can all do your research and looking into it, but definitely could be looked in that way. So many people now just like to listen to conversations, which is now, like I said, check out the baby of Basic Sikhi channel. So yeah, Sangat, I can try and go through some of the playlists, some of what is on the channel, but there's just so many things that are on there. But just to remind you that it's literally a khajana, it's a treasure. And like the Guru says that Pyo Dade da khol dittha khajana tao mere man paya nidana, that my mind was just in this absolute bliss when I opened up this treasure. And the treasure is Gurbani, and this then channel is filled with that treasure. So it's got all the Nityanem Bani are translated. It's got more. It's then on top of that, it's got Shabd Hazare. It's got the Anand Garaj course on there. It's a series, but it can be taken and received as a course. We've mentioned the Waheguru course. Preacher, and come on, name some, bro.
Asadivar.
Asadivar.
Slokala Noma, Slok Sanskriti, Jasri Kivar, Ramkali Kivar.
There's no way I was going to remember all of them. All right. So that's just all the Baniya from Guru Granth Sahib Ji that are on there, that are translated, by the way. That's what we mean. Come on, keep going. What else have we got on there?
Kirtan, Katha, philosophies, talks from uni. So if you're not into Katha so much, but you like to hear it from like a talk perspective, you can listen to talks, and so many like that.
How many Q&As we've got on there is like hundreds, haven't we? We still get people messaging us all the time saying, can you answer this? Can you answer this? But it's so much there. So our point being, it's a resource for everyone, and Everything's 13's mission isn't YouTube, but it's to continue spreading the Guru's word and the Guru's sakhiyan lives, and in whichever form is gonna be appropriate for the time, for people to be able to receive that and better their lives with it, because that's ultimately what it is. Because when you're in that good place yourself and you're connecting to God and experiencing that level, that some level of oneness at least, then you can only then be good to others if you're in that place yourself, and that's what this is all about, for growth. So continue supporting us. It's been an amazing 10 years, not to say we haven't had our struggles, and we will continue to do ardas and pray and put that plea before the Guru to keep us humble and to keep us serving in the best possible way, so that we can all keep growing together. So do support us in whichever way that you can, and subscribe to the channel and watch the channel, whether that support is through financially supporting us or supporting us through any other means. You can reach out and go to our website. So thank you for watching this. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, share and subscribe. Please donate and help spread Guruji's message. Link is in the description below. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Waheguru, Waheguru.
Happy Holi!
ਅੱਜ ਇੱਕ ਖਾਸ ਤਿਉਹਾਰ ਵੀ ਹੈ। ਹਿੰਦੂ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਹੋਲੀ ਦਾ ਤਿਉਹਾਰ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ ਅਤੇ ਸਿੱਖ ਭਾਈਚਾਰੇ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਹੋਲਾ ਮਹੱਲਾ ਮਨਾਇਆ ਜਾਂਦਾ ਹੈ। ਖਾਲਸਾਈ ਸ਼ਾਨੋ ਸ਼ੌਕਤ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੇ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਹੋਲੇ ਮਹੱਲੇ ਦਾ ਆਗਾਜ਼ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਚੁੱਕਿਆ ਹੈ। ਪਹਿਲੇ ਦਿਨ ਵੱਡੀ ਗਿਣਤੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੰਗਤਾਂ ਨੇ ਮੱਥਾ ਟੇਕਿਆ। ਤਖ਼ਤ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕੇਸਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੱਕ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਵੀ ਸਜਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਇਹ ਨਗਰ ਕੀਰਤਨ ਸੰਤ ਸਮਾਜ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਭੇਖ ਪੰਚਾਇਤੀ ਅਖਾੜਾ ਹਰਿਦੁਆਰ ਨਿਰਮਲ ਭੇਖ ਗੁਰਮਤ ਪ੍ਰਚਾਰ ਮੰਡਲ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਟਿੱਬਾ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੋਂ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਗੁਰੂ ਗ੍ਰੰਥ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਜੀ ਦੀ ਛਤਰ ਛਾਇਆ ਤੇ 5 ਪਿਆਰਿਆਂ ਦੀ ਅਗਵਾਈ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਜਾਇਆ ਗਿਆ। ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਖੰਡ ਪਾਠ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਭੋਗ ਵੀ ਆਰੰਭ ਕੀਤੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ ਤੇ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਨੂੰ ਭੋਗ ਪਾਏ ਜਾਣਗੇ। ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਨਿਹੰਗ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਕੱਲ੍ਹ ਅਨੰਦਪੁਰ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੀ ਧਰਤੀ ਤੇ ਖਾਲਸਾਈ ਸ਼ਾਨੋ ਸ਼ੌਕਤ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਮਹੱਲਾ ਕੱਢਿਆ ਜਾਵੇਗਾ, ਜਿਹੜਾ ਕਿ ਚਰਨ ਗੰਗਾ ਸਟੇਡੀਅਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜੰਗਾਂ ਯੁੱਧਾਂ ਦੇ ਕਰਤੱਵ ਨਿਹੰਗ ਸਿੰਘਾਂ ਦੇ ਵੱਲੋਂ ਦਿਖਾਏ ਜਾਣਗੇ ਤੇ ਅਰਦਾਸ ਤੋਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਸਮਾਪਤੀ ਹੋ ਜਾਏਗੀ। ਹੋਲੇ ਮਹੱਲੇ ਮੌਕੇ ਅਰਬਾਂ ਰੁਪਏ ਦੀ ਲਾਗਤ ਨਾਲ ਹੋਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਤਖ਼ਤ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕੇਸਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਸੁੰਦਰੀਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਕੰਮ ਵੀ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਵਾ ਦਿੱਤੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ। 23 ਸਾਲਾਂ ਬਾਅਦ ਮੁੜ ਇਸ ਸੁੰਦਰੀਕਰਨ ਦੇ ਕਾਰਜ ਆਰੰਭੇ ਗਏ ਨੇ। ਇਸ ਤਹਿਤ ਤਖ਼ਤ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕੇਸਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰਬੰਧਕੀ ਬਲਾਕ ਦਾ ਨਿਰਮਾਣ, ਜੋੜਾ ਘਰ ਤੇ ਗਠੜੀ ਘਰ ਦਾ ਨਿਰਮਾਣ, ਜਥੇਦਾਰ ਦੀ ਰਿਹਾਇਸ਼, ਸਰੋਵਰ ਤੋਂ ਆਉਂਦੇ ਰਾਹ ਤੇ ਦਰਸ਼ਨੀ ਡਿਊੜੀ, ਸੰਗਤ ਲਈ ਲਿਫਟਾਂ ਲਾਉਣੀਆਂ, ਪੁਰਾਣੀਆਂ ਇਮਾਰਤਾਂ ਦਾ ਨਵੀਨੀਕਰਨ, ਤਖ਼ਤ ਸ੍ਰੀ ਕੇਸਗੜ੍ਹ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਤੇ ਗੁਰਦੁਆਰਾ ਮੰਜੀ ਸਾਹਿਬ ਨੂੰ ਆਪਸ ਵਿੱਚ ਜੋੜਨਾ, ਪੁਲ ਬਣਾ ਕੇ ਇਹ ਸਾਰੇ ਕੰਮ ਸ਼ਾਮਿਲ ਨੇ। ਤੇ ਹੋਲੀ ਨੂੰ ਪਸੰਦ ਕਰਨ ਵਾਲੇ ਲੋਕ ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਦਿਨ ਇੱਕ ਦੂਸਰੇ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾਲ ਗੁਲਾਲ ਸੁੱਟ ਕੇ, ਯਾਨੀ ਕਿ ਪਾਣੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਅਤੇ ਸੁੱਕੇ ਰੰਗ ਸੁੱਟ ਕੇ ਹੋਲੀ ਦਾ ਤਿਉਹਾਰ ਮਨਾਉਂਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅਸੀਂ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਹੋਲੀ ਤੇ ਹੋਲੇ ਮਹੱਲੇ ਦੀਆਂ ਵਧਾਈਆਂ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ।